you say we're just going to work in the My Training course? Is that?
Yes, that's where I wanted to start first. So let me just get back home.
What's the address there again?
ocmoodle.oldscollege.ca.
There you go. And then your username is your first initial last name. And then your password is 123456. And it's going to ask you to, yeah, and then put that back in. And then put in, make up a new, so put the 123456 back in. And then whatever password you want to use. Okay, so we will be using the Olds College Online, the website, the Moodle. But what I wanted to do first was just talk about a few things. Go back here. So when you do a Hangout, you can actually share your screen with whoever is participating. So no one is actually watching this. I do have it on that computer just so I can see what's going on. And we will be offering more specific training on Hangouts, but you can share your screen. So if I pick screen, and then.
What is a Hangout?
So it's just it's basically like Skype or FaceTime, or it's Google's version of those face-to-face communication tools.
Just for the college?
No, it's any, as long as you have a Google account. So all of the.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah, so all Olds College staff now have Google accounts, and that comes now. We can all do Hangouts. So we could just do a Hangout, just a regular Hangout. Then it's just a. Basically, it's like FaceTime. But if you do a Hangout on air, then that's when it becomes part attached to your YouTube channel, and it gets recorded. So these are now being recorded. So what I wanted to do first is just kind of walk through some of the things looking at course design in Moodle before we actually get in and start clicking and playing around. Because the one thing I would probably suggest is try to design as much of your course before you even get into Moodle. Figure out where do you want to, what kinds of things do you want to put in it? How are you going to organize your course? What do you want your students to do with it? If you do a lot of that first, then once you get into the Moodle, it's just the clicking and figuring out where you're going to put the stuff. You've already had a lot of that course planned out. So that's the first part that I want to look at. What we're going to do today, what I'm hoping you're going to be able to do after the session, is we're going to look at the purpose of Moodle. Just like I said, why do you want to use it? Are you using it as just like a gradebook thing? Are you wanting to use it for your students to get information, like extra resources? Are you wanting to use it for quizzes, assignments, discussion forums? What's the purpose that you want to use it for? And kind of same thing, what do you hope to accomplish with Moodle? Are you missing something in your courses right now that you want Moodle to do for you? So we'll look at some of those today. We're also going to look at the idea of having a community of inquiry. And really, that can be used in any course, face-to-face or online. We'll start talking about it when you're developing your courses. You may as well kind of start building some of these things in mind. And the kind of presences that you can have in your course. There's different ways that you can be present in your course, and we'll talk about what those can look like. And then we'll give you a chance to get into Moodle. We'll practice. We'll click around a little bit. I'll show you some things. I've enrolled you in a demo course. You can try some things out and see how they look. Okay. So, like I said, figure out what is your purpose that you want to do with Moodle first. So why do you want your students to use Moodle? Have you heard other instructors talking about it? Have you have your students come to you and said, oh, all of our other instructors are using Moodle, how come you aren't? Or do you think you've heard of some things that it wants, that you know that it can do, that you want to use in your courses? So that's probably the first question that you want to ask yourself is, what do I want to use this for? That will then help with a lot of your planning later on. So again, what are you hoping to achieve in Moodle? And do you have any problems that Moodle will help with? So maybe you are having trouble with your gradebook. Maybe you don't know how to get that gradebook results to your students. Maybe you're printing off Excel spreadsheets and putting them up on the wall with their student ID numbers, and they figure out who's who. So maybe you have some issues. You're not sure how to share content with your students. You don't know how to get out. You've got all these great PowerPoints and videos and websites, but you don't know how to get those to your students. So Moodle could help you with that. Yeah.
Can this be integrated with any gradebook system, or do you manually put the marks?
Moodle has its own gradebook system, and you can mark things outside of Moodle and manually enter the marks, or you can develop quizzes that Moodle will mark for you, and then the marks then they automatically pop up in the gradebook. So, but there is a set gradebook that I think you can export them into like an Excel spreadsheet, and then I don't know if you could take that and then import that into another gradebook system. I'm not sure, but yeah, we don't have a gradebook system here at the college.
We do something called gradebook.
Right. So once you've kind of figured out this purpose for your course, then you also need to tell your students why you're using Moodle. What expectations do you have of them? Do you expect them to log in every day? Are you going to be posting information and not keeping them? You're not going to remind them every day that there's always going to be new links and new videos and new things to read, or are you always going to be it's a place where you put your course information after you have a class time, then you put up your PowerPoints that you talked about in class. So it's good to be consistent with it. So if you're using it really just for quizzes, then you could probably start to increase things throughout the semester, but you might not want to do all of your quizzes for the first half of the semester in Moodle, and then I'm going to switch and do this, then I'm going to switch and do this, and the students might have a hard time figuring out where are we supposed to go, how are we doing these, where are we supposed to be handing these in. So just trying to be consistent with your students, and then they know what the expectations are of why they need to log in. Okay, so when you're thinking about, okay, what are the reasons that I could use Moodle, one thing that you should try to think of is, how could I get my students more involved in the course using Moodle? So having this community of inquiry includes both the social presence, the cognitive presence, and the teaching presence. So what do you think of like with the social presence? What piece do you think that would be?
Is there forums or chat in there?
Yeah. So the social presence could be, how are your students interacting with each other? How are they being social? How are you interacting with the students? How are the students seeing you in the course? Then the cognitive presence, what would that piece, what role would that be that you could play?
Doing the quizzes, or if you have them set up?
Right, so it could be, to what level are you kind of expecting your students to be thinking about the content in the course? So how are they thinking, how are they interacting, how are they working with the content? And then the teaching presence.
Resources.
Right, so it's what work have you done to kind of build the course? So what resources are there? Is there a lesson plan? Is there a unit plan? Is there some sort of planning going on in this course? So all three of those together can link together to build that educational experience. This community of inquiry, this was based on research that was done from some professors at the University of Calgary. So I came across this and I thought it would be a really good thing to include, to try, when you are designing your course and trying to think of the pieces that you want to put into your Moodle course, try to think of how they would fit into these three things. And we'll go into a bit more detail here on those. So the social presence is, why are you in the class? So as an instructor, you can maybe you can put a bit of a bio about yourself, talk about, this is my experience, these are the courses I've taught in the past, this is some of my training, this is why I'm interested in teaching this stuff to you. So just explain why you are there, and then also give the students a chance to explain why they are there. What are their interests? Why are they in this program? Why did they choose this class? What experiences do they have? Have they worked in industry before? So give the students a chance to kind of show some of their social presence. Makes everybody feel a little bit more comfortable, feels welcome. You realize that you're not just talking to a computer. It's not just a robot making this course for you. There's other actual physical living human beings in this course, if they can see that social presence piece. If you want to have any sort of group activities, building some of that social presence at the beginning will really help, because they'll get to meet each other, even if they never meet face-to-face. Maybe you're building a course for a completely online program. Maybe they do meet face-to-face. But having that the opportunity to talk a little bit about themselves, post some information about themselves, and later on when they work in a group, they've already got to know each other a little bit. And that will always help with working in those group activities. And again, it just kind of gives them an opportunity to communicate. You want to encourage that open communication. You want to model open and effective communication as much as you can as well. So if you're speaking in a discussion forum and posting some things about yourself, it's a good time to kind of show what is the kind of language you would expect of your students, what kinds of things do you want them to post. It really kind of gives you a chance to model that for them. So as an example of this, right off the top, what you might want to do is have a discussion forum where everybody posts a little bit about themselves, and then they can reply to each other. They'll probably find out that this person knows their cousin, and this person ended up just living down the road from them, and this person went to the same high school as them, and there's always those connections. It's such a small world. You always seem to find somebody out there that you know somewhere along the line. You can also talk about class expectations and norms, so maybe they can kind of set up some of those class rules, especially for the online component. Like if you're going to have class discussions, they can help with setting up the expectations, like, okay, we're going to all contribute 2 posts once a week. Everyone agrees with that. Everyone can handle that kind of a workload. The kinds of language that you would expect in your class online, they can all kind of build those expectations. Also within the social presence is we highly recommend that you create some sort of welcome to the class. Probably what you would physically say out, verbally say out on the first day of class. It would be a good idea to create a document of some sort where they see kind of all of your expectations, what you expect the class to be like, how they can do well in the course, what are some of the resources, what are some of the activities they're going to do throughout the semester. It's almost like a letter that you would write to your students that you would put online. So again, if you see your students a lot more face-to-face than online, you might not need to put as much detail in this, but for our instructors that teach entirely online courses and build their Moodle courses where they never see their students face-to-face, they said having a very detailed, explicit welcome to the class document that has all of that expectations laid out front, the students rarely have any questions. Like before, they would always be asking the same questions, like how do we do this, where do we hand this in, when do we have to have things due? If they put all of that in that document, it answered a lot of those questions right up front. So, and we have some samples of this. So these welcome to class documents, we can give you a couple samples if you're curious kind of what these might look like. Okay, so the teaching presence is, so if you compare that to the social presence is just that they know that you're there as a person, that it's not just a computer running the course. The teaching presence is you as a teacher versus you just being in the Moodle course. So this shows that, so this would be the design that you use. How are you facilitating the students? And how are you instructing them? So if they see that you are motivated to put this information out there, they are going to be much more willing to finish the quizzes, do the assignments, participate in the Moodle component of your course. If you have this organized, if it's well laid out, if it makes sense, it's easy to find where they need to go, they're going to put in the effort as well. So if they've seen that you've put the effort in, and the presence in there, then they are going to as well. If they feel that you're not really there, you're not involved, you're just dumping stuff in your course, that's all you're doing, they're probably not going to take a lot of interest in it and want to participate in the ways that you might want them to. So just something to keep in mind. It does take a lot of upfront work, but once you have that all laid out and planned and structured, then it's going to go much smoother, online and face-to-face in any class. So just like I said, if they see you there present, and they're going to want to model it back if they see you participating in the class as well. And then the cognitive presence is what are they having to do in the course? So what are they thinking about? Are they doing quizzes, assignments, activities, discussion forums? Are they getting deeper into the content? So what's the thinking? Cognitive is the thinking part of it. So it's constructing meaning from this. So are you giving them extra resources that kind of together, all of these readings and videos really construct the meaning that you want them to get about the topics that you're talking about in class? Are you letting them to participate with the content a little bit deeper? Or is it just more of a, here's some videos I want you to watch, it supports what we talked about in class? So you can give different levels of kind of that thinking ability in your content. So again, they should be doing something with it. So again, not just don't dump a bunch of videos and say, here, watch all these great YouTube videos. Well, what do you want me to do with it? So maybe they have to do a summary of what they saw, or maybe they have to write a quiz, or maybe they have to do an assignment with it. So it's better for them to watch the videos and then reflect on it. Give them something that actually gets them participating or working with that stuff you're putting in Moodle. And again, reading and doing a quiz has its value, but you do want to get them deeper into the content if you can. So more of like applications, constructions, analysis, collaborative work where you're asking the students to work together. Moodle can be a great place to do that. But again, if you're just starting out, putting in readings, putting in those quizzes, that's a great place to start. Baby steps. You don't have to jump right in. But probably once you start that, then you might start thinking of some ideas. Well, we do this discussion face-to-face. I want to try it online. I want to try it in my Moodle course. So that might be something you can take from a face-to-face component and move it into your online. And with Moodle and with having the online component, something that it's almost a good place to let your students do kind of those self-check activities. So you give them practice quizzes, you give them practice exams, practice assignments. It's almost where they can try things out before it really counts. So you can build all sorts of things and just basically make them count for nothing if you're using your grade book in Moodle. And it lets them fail, it lets them try questions out, get them wrong, see what the right answer was, and then later maybe you ask those exact same questions in another quiz that actually counts, but it just lets them have a chance to try things out. They can do it on their own time, they can do it in the evenings. You might build a quiz and say, okay, guys, go home after class, here's a quiz you can work on. See how you do? We're going to do a quiz on this for real the next day in class. So it just gives them that chance to try things out before it really counts. You can also, in your Moodle course, share your rubrics of how you're going to be marking assignments. So perhaps it's a construction kind of a course. They have to build something, take something apart, put it back together. You could, in Moodle, outline it specifically. Okay, I'm going to be looking for this. I'm going to be marking this. Then maybe in class, you just refer to them and say, okay, the rubric is in Moodle. On your own, have a look at this tonight. Tomorrow, we're actually going to do the assignment where I'm going to be marking you. So you're giving them kind of that heads up of how you're going to be marking them. So you're sharing your standards and what your expectations are with them. So again, that discussions, activities, you can do lots of things in Moodle that don't have to count for marks. Doesn't have to automatically go in the grade book. That's entirely up to you. It's just a good idea to kind of start thinking, what are the activities I want them to do for learning versus what are the ones I'm actually doing for marks? You probably don't want to always give them just assignments for marks. Give them those activities where they can try things out, see how they're doing, where they get feedback. And Moodle is great for giving feedback. You can design quizzes that if they get the answers wrong, you can say, okay, that you were close, but it should have been this. Or you can do it specific question by question, or you can do it if they get less than 50%. You might want to give them a little bit of feedback on how they did. So Moodle is great for that. You can build that into your quiz. Again, it's a lot of upfront work, but then once your students have it, they can do a lot of that work on their own. Okay, so if you want your students to be doing kind of that critical thinking and knowledge construction more than just kind of the surface, read this or watch this video, read this reading, answer some questions, if you want them to get deeper into it, you really have to have a structured and cohesive course. There has to be flows and connections between all of the content. Okay, so how do we do this? We've talked a lot about all the kind of theory and the research of what makes a good course. How do we actually do it? So, like I said, you probably want to do a lot of this even before you log into Moodle. Start thinking about, okay, how am I going to organize this? What would be the most sense? Should I do it week by week? Should I do it topic by topic? Do I have chapters that I follow? Do I have outcomes that I follow from the learning modules? What would be the best way to structure this for my students? So, and you can actually set this up in Moodle, set the blocks, say week 1, week 2, week 3, and it will even put the dates in it for you, or it will say topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, and you can edit that to actually say the name of the topic. What information do you want to share with your students? There's lots of things you can put in. You can put in all sorts of documents, files, information for your students. Like I said, we talked about that welcome letter. Kind of, do they need some of that background information? What do you want to share with them? What kind of activities are they going to be doing? Are they interacting with other students? Figure out some of that beforehand. What do you want to try? What do you want to put in? So again, it does take that upfront work. You are doing a lot of planning up front, but if you have that structure and you have that planning done, then it's really going to lead to more of that critical thinking. You're going to get a lot more involved in the course. And you want to try to build your course so that it's consistent. And if you have multiple courses, maybe within the same program, you might even want to work with other instructors so that you can have a similar course layout. So if you are using maybe the different outcomes, like A through G in one course, maybe you want to set it up similarly between all the other apprenticeship courses. Just so then students know when I go into Moodle for any of my courses in the whole program, there's a bit of structure. When we develop the courses for, like, say, land administration, all of those courses, we try to build some consistent structure. Our department does have a template that we can provide to you if you want to put that in, that has some basic information that outlines the schedule, that course welcome. There's some links to Olds College administration, like how do I get to the library, what are the Olds College policies, some of that general stuff. We can put all of that in all of your courses so that every student is the same, no matter what, for that first initial block. And I've already put those in your training courses that you should be enrolled in. That's already in there. And I will send this PowerPoint to you. I'll share it. We have it as a Google Doc, so I can just share it with all of you after so that you will have this. Probably, and again, here just kind of outlines kind of some steps, a lot of the stuff we've talked about already. But the one I really wanted to focus on is kind of that number 3 and number 4, is make sure that you know that your assessment pieces match back to your objectives. So if you're building assessments in Moodle, and you look at your course outline or your outcomes, and it was a lot of like analyze, construct, like there's a lot of like higher level thinking. And in Moodle, all you're doing is quizzes, and they're just doing multiple choice and true and false. And you might have wanted to build some activities that actually get more into those deeper kinds of outcomes. So make sure that your outcomes and your activities are closely linked together. Okay, so what I want to do now is let's pull up your Moodle course. So is everybody able to get logged in? Okay.
I don't think I have it, but I think I'm going
Yes.
to use another
Yes.
one of my...
I saw you had lots of existing courses, Dalen, so I thought maybe you could just poke around. We have lots of new Moodle users, so I gave them training courses. So when you logged in, you should have seen my training course with your last name. If you want to go to that one, and that you can keep as long as you want. If you want to try around, play with it a little bit, and then once you're okay with it, then we can delete it. We can hide it for you if you want, but you always can have access to it. It's a good place to just try a few things, see how they look. So what this is just like it says, it's your Moodle playground. It's a place where you can try things out. What I wanted to point out is this section where it says introductory information down to keeping in touch. That is our template that we've created. There is a group, it's eCampus Alberta. It's basically a place where students can go online and find where different programs are offered through all the institutions in Alberta. Olds College has some of our programming on there. They do have standards that they want their courses to follow. So any courses that we create that go into eCampus Alberta have some standards that have to be met. By creating this template with these components, we've met a lot of those. So even if your course isn't going to be put on eCampus Alberta, you know that by following a lot of these components, you're meeting a lot of the standards that good courses in most institutions in Alberta are following. So it's just a good idea to maybe use some of these. And again, it's entirely up to you how much you want to use. We can't stop you if you click the little X, but we encourage you to keep a lot of this in there. All right, so if you turn your editing on, so up across this blue bar, you'll notice that there's a bunch of icons that are now going to show up beside. So if you hover over these, it tells you what they mean, what they're going to do. You'll see this course, if you want to call it a course. So it has this very introductory block. It has this introduction and introductory information. Then I've titled each one, so this next block is called Sample Learning Activities. The next one is, oh, sorry, I guess there is only just that one. And then I've created sections within that. So then you could make multiple blocks below that. So if you wanted to add another one, I think you might actually, do you have more blocks in your copy? If you scroll down here, just want to see. If you click on that one, if you go down to the next. Okay, so you do have a topic 3. Okay. So in the one that I'm working in, it just has the minimum of them. But you can always add more sections. Is there 8? Okay. You can have, some instructors have 15 to 20. They might have one for each week. Others might only have 3 or 4. It just depends on how they want to set this up. So you can decide kind of how many of these blocks do I want. Do I maybe want to have a block for assignments, a block for quizzes, a block for resources, or do I want it to have more of a linear flow of how the course would actually, like, here's the stuff from the first week, here's the stuff from the second week, and so on. So again, it's a lot easier if you kind of come up with some of that structure at the beginning, because once you start building your course and then you decide partway through, I should have done it the other way, it can get pretty messy to move things around. Moodle is good when you're building it from scratch, but once you try and start moving things, it's not the easiest to work in. So just trying to do as much of that up front, that initial planning, it makes it much, much easier. So in each block, you then have the option to add activities or resources. So to edit the title of the block itself, once you have your editing on, there's a little icon summary kind of underneath, edit summary. When you click on that, it usually changes, that's usually it goes into the setting of that, or pretty much everything in Moodle has that little edit icon. So here, rather than calling it topic 3, I can uncheck that and I might call it week number 2, or I can call it chapter 10, or whatever seems to make the most sense with that. I can save those changes, and you should always get in the habit of looking for a Save Changes button. It's usually way at the bottom. You have to kind of scroll past everything, get down there, click, and save your changes. It's not like Google that automatically updates and saves your changes for you. In Moodle, you'll have to save them. So once you've created that block, called it whatever you need to do, then you can add all sorts of activities and resources in there. So, and these we'll get into more, we are going to have specific workshops on how do I do assignments, how do I do like assignments, forums, those sort of things, how do I do quizzes. So, and if you have any questions, if you have questions before the sessions, please don't hesitate to contact our department. We definitely can help you out, but we'll get in more into the details of these another day. But you can add this, so the activities are things that students would be doing, assignments, chats, forums are common ones, quizzes, those are probably the most common ones. Resources are things that you are putting in for the students to use. So you can create a thing called a Google book, sorry, a Moodle book, that has pages of content that your students can access. You can put in files, so perhaps you have a Word document or a PDF that you want your students to view. You can put that in. You can organize things by folders. You can create a web page, or you can put in links. So if you are doing a lot of work in Google and you have a lot of Google Docs and forms and things like that, if you have YouTube videos, you can link to those by putting them into your course. So you would just select whatever one you want to put in. So say a URL, and then once you've decided which one, you add that, and then it usually walks you through. So here it wants you to put in the URL. If you were putting in a file, if I go back, if I was actually adding a file, it would want me to add it, I'd attach it like I would to an email. So. That. I've given you some things in here that if you want to, again, just kind of poke around. Like I said, we'll get into more detail on these on other evenings. We'll do a night just on discussion forums and a night just on assignments and quizzes. But I've given you some sample ones here for you. I've given you a few help pages that you can use. It'll give you a little bit more detail. You can see what an assignment would look like. What's the quiz look like? Quizzes you can build with multiple choice questions, true and false questions, matching. You can have them, the students actually typing in answers, but then those ones you have to mark yourself. If you do multiple choice, true and false, you can actually build it so Moodle will mark it for you, and the mark automatically populates into the gradebook. So we're definitely seeing more and more people working on their quizzes and taking advantage of that. Then another thing that a lot of instructors are using more and more this year is also the grade, or we've seen throughout the last couple of years, is the grade book, because then students log into Moodle and they see just their marks. You don't have to worry about printing off a spreadsheet, posting it up, students figuring out who the other students are in the class. You don't have to try to like hide student ID numbers or whatever. They log in, all they can see is their mark. You see the entire class, you see how everybody is doing, but the students can only see their own. You can then weight it, like I have the sample up here. Assignments are worth 25%, quizzes 10%, projects 35%, a final. So maybe you have a different kind of weighting for your courses. You can decide what it is. That can be changed, it can be altered. You might just have 2 things that you're marking. Maybe it's a final exam and projects. You can decide how that all gets set up. So you see some things a little bit differently as the instructor. With your editing turned on, you see all those icons. The students never see those. You can hide things from your students. Clicking the little eye will hide it. You will still see it, but the students won't. So if you are working on things in the future, like things that are upcoming in the future weeks, maybe assignments and quizzes, you can be working on those and hide them so your students can't see them. So there's definitely a benefit to that. Any questions at this point?
Is there a way? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Is there a way to switch to like a student view to see exactly what they're seeing?
Yes, there is actually. To a limited, it doesn't show exactly, because it still knows that you are logged in as the instructor. So when we create these course shells for you, you contact our department, we create them, we enroll you as an instructor, which then you can enroll other people in as a student. It's still, so over here in your settings block, and these blocks, as if you look at mine, you'll see my settings block is there, but my activities, my navigation, latest news messages, I've docked those on the side. If you're working on a smaller screen and those are getting quite, because they're kind of getting in the way and your text is quite narrow in the center, if you click on the little white and blue square that's in the corner of that blue bar, it moves it over to the dock. So especially if you're on the iPad, this really helps, because then it takes away those. They're still always there. They're always over here on the side. So if I hover over them, they pop. I can still see them. And if I want to put it back, if I'm finding I'm using one of those blocks quite a bit, I can put it back by clicking again on that little blue square. If I hover over it, it says undock this item, and then it puts it back. So, okay, so now to answer your question, in that settings block, there is a switch role to, and I can switch the role to student. So you should get a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. There still are a few things that you are going to see a little bit differently because you are the instructor. If you want to get a true view of what this looks like from a student's perspective, we can make you a demo student account. So you would actually have 2 separate Moodle accounts. We can enroll that demo account in as just a student. Then you could log in as the instructor, log in as the student. You could try the quizzes, because you really can't. It's probably the quizzes and the assignments are the trickiest ones to do as an instructor, because it knows you're the instructor. It doesn't record your mark. It doesn't show your quiz results like it does with the students. So you can get a good idea of how it looks as the layout, but actually participating in some of the activities, it's better to have a true student account. So yeah, so just let us know if you think you would really benefit from having a separate account. Just let us know, and we just need to have you just have to provide us with another email address, because this one that you're using right now is your old college email. Every Moodle account has to have a separate email address. Okay. Any other questions? So Moodle it's a great thing to just click around, especially in this kind of training course that we've made for you. If you delete something, we can always help you put it back. Try not to click on too many red X's, because that is what deletes it. It does ask you, are you sure you want to delete this? It's not an immediate thing, so you do get a second chance just in case. But if you do accidentally delete something and you really need it back, please don't panic. Contact us. We can help you out. So this is a good place just to try some things. And then if you do have a course shell that you want made up, let us know. We can set it up for you. We'll put the template in. Just just as a heads up, it will say things like instructor add this here, instructor add this there. Please take those out. Clean those up a little bit. We've seen some courses where instructors leave all that in there. So we encourage you to go in, clean it up, and make it specific to your course. Okay. So I just want to pop back to my PowerPoint. One more slide. So I just thought I would ask a few questions. So after what we've done today, is there something that you're going to take away that you're going to try? Hopefully now you know where the resources, really our department is if you want the kind of that face-to-face help. But you can Google this, you can watch them on YouTube. I do have to say though that you have to be careful because there are different versions of Moodle. Are we 2.4? So if you see a YouTube video on a higher version or a lower version, it might look a little bit different than ours. And our theme of having the blue and the Olds College swirl and all that, it's different for other institutions. So it won't look exactly the same. Some of the icons look a little bit different with other institutions just with the themes that they've picked. So YouTube, you have to be careful. But in Google, sorry, I just want to go back to one more thing. On every page in Moodle, when you scroll down to the bottom, so no matter what you're doing, let me just go into a quiz, for example. There we go. So no matter where you are, if you're on any sort of page, working on a quiz, working on an assignment, working in your grade book, when you scroll down to the bottom, there's this link that says Moodle Docs for this page. Every page in Moodle has this. If you click on it, it gives you a specific help page for wherever you are. So if you're working on quizzes, it gives you quiz help. If you're working on assignments, it gives you assignment help. Since I'm on the course homepage, that's the one that pops up. So that is a really great place to start, is Moodle has built their own help pages, and they're all linked right at the bottom of wherever you are. So that's a good place to start. Try that. If that doesn't answer your questions, then please come and contact us. All right.
Your faculty tech mentor that has
Yes.
a Moodle specialty is actually Darla. So for some of you, how many welders are here? Any? No?
Nope.
So it's a building away.
Yeah.
She's one building away. And then of course, George is also a tech mentor, though his specialty is Moodle. And then everybody on the support side of ETC has a pretty good knowledge of Moodle. So don't hesitate to ask.
Mm-hmm.
We can't always give you the answer, but we will always point you. We will always find the answer and get it to you.
Yes. So I thought I wouldn't mind if I could actually ask you to share, especially the very first question. So Bruce, is there something that from today or from what you've used Moodle in the past and what we talked about today, is there something that you're going to try this semester?
Oh, I've been trying lots of things.
Yeah.
I guess for me, because I've been working with Moodle and the online thing, I've tried, like you were talking earlier about putting your course into Moodle, and I probably didn't spend enough time laying everything out ahead of time, because I've done exactly what you said. Started to try and move stuff around after it was already in. And for me, that's the one thing that I think is probably just about the most important, is that you know what you want to put in there and you have it kind of laid out before you start to play around in there.
Okay.
And we'll give you your $5 for being the cautionary tale for others.
Yeah. Mike, do you have just some things that you think you might try?
Well, I came from the Blackboard world.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to try and do some of the similar sort of course layout
Okay.
to what I'm used to, and try it in this and see what's different, what's similar.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Greg?
Well, I guess since I haven't really done much in this already, I'm hoping to work probably more to getting course information in there, and maybe try to get some of the quiz end of it worked into there right now, and some of the extra stuff, because I have a fair amount of extra information that I wouldn't mind, easy access to for students.
Right. Okay, good. Thanks. Mitch?
And I think it'd be basically the same as what Greg is doing, same idea.
Okay.
Material-wise, get in there and dig around a little bit, see what's all being offered, and, just familiarize, because I've done nothing with it at all.
Right.
So just to look around and see, familiarize, and then
Okay.
kind of do what Greg was saying. Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks. And do your students have iPads?
The full-time student should.
Yeah. Okay. So apprenticeship and, do the apprenticeship students have to have iPads?
apprenticeships.
No, oh, okay. Okay. And then do you guys teach like some apprenticeship courses and some, so you kind of go back and forth? Okay. Okay, good. Do you have any?
Well, I started with it last year on my own and use it for quizzes and reading resources.
Okay.
So I need to expand on that and fix some stuff up, and it's great. I love it. I don't have to mark. The only time I mark is if it's an essay type question,
Right.
which is okay by me.
And then you had quizzes that they did in class, or did you have anything that you assigned as homework with quizzes, or was
Well,
it more
the
in
quizzes
class?
are homework.
Yeah.
I teach grade 9 to 12 shop, so it all builds into their program, meets the
Right.
curriculum requirements.
Right.
So it just saves a ton of time for them.
Good.
And I can let them have 3 tries at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are they doing quite a bit of Moodle with the high school?
I use it.
Yeah.
I use it for myself because I can't keep track of, too many kids do too many different projects, so. The kids love it. They try to circumvent the system just by, whether it's a true or false multiple choice, but they find out pretty quick that they need to do the reading resource.
Mm-hmm.
So,
If you build the questions, so
Pardon
that
me?
if you build the questions so that
Yeah.
they need to actually, yeah.
for sure.
Good, thanks. Yeah, and we'll find, like, once we get more into quizzes, like you said, you give them 3 attempts. Like, you can do lots with quizzes where they get multiple attempts, or if they do, they have to take time in between the first time to when they get to come back in and take it again. You can limit, like, once they start it, they only have an hour or 10 minutes or whatever to finish the quiz. There's lots of things that you can set up. It can drop the lowest mark, keep the highest mark, whatever. So you can do lots of things with quizzes. So there definitely is lots of
Well,
settings
the part
and
that
things you
I
can
like
play
is
around
I
with.
only have an hour in between, so if they don't finish it, as long as they click submit, finish and submit, they can go back to where they left off,
Mhm.
which is awesome.
Mhm.
Because some have reading problems, right?
Yes. Yeah, and we have some instructors who use, it's called a quiz, but you can use it for anything. Like, we've had one instructor who uses it, he's built kind of multiple choice and open and both kinds of questions, and he has the time limit for like 7 days. Like, this quiz runs, once they start it, they have like 7 days to get it done. So you don't have to think of it as like a quiz with just multiple choice questions. It can be used for multiple different
Mine is
things.
open for the whole term,
Mm-hmm.
so when they get to it, they have to finish, but they have to meet that term of credits. Right.
And you can have it so that students can work ahead, and they can do it at any time, but they has to be done by a certain date. Like, they can open and close them at certain times too. So yeah, we'll get into quizzes. There's lots of details, things you can click on with quizzes with the settings. Good. Thanks. Great. Yeah, it's good to see kind of some ideas that you're going to take away. Is there any other questions kind of about like the topic of today, like looking just kind of at that general course development or course structure design? Oh, sorry about that. Anything that we missed that you were hoping we would talk about today? Good. So yeah, oh yes, sorry, Greg.
If we have a lot of information on PowerPoint,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, and we want to move it into here, what is the preferred best? I'm sure there's
Yeah.
lots of different ways of doing it. Well, Nick, what's the best way?
So, one of the things this is my personal opinion. I just happen to be the boss of this
Yeah.
department, so.
Yeah.
Moodle isn't really spectacular at storing information. It's awesome for that behind the firewall, record keeping, testing, all of that stuff. And yes, you can store information. But what Moodle's really good at is linking out to where you're going to store it. And the only reason I say that is so let's look at what are you teaching in right now?
Well, I'll be starting it's fourth year, or I guess, full-time program to start off with. Second, it's on-road powertrain.
Perfect. Okay. So you've got some awesome information in your PowerPoints and great resources, not only for while they're in class, but when they leave. If you store your information in Moodle, the only time they can access that information is when they're logged into Moodle, and when they're no longer a student, they can't be logged in here. So you've got this great thing on calculating ratios in a gearbox. And it's a good diagram and a nice, here's the 3 steps that you've got to remember. What a great resource for them to have for the rest of their life. If it's in Moodle, you're done. If you store that PowerPoint in Drive or Dropbox or whatever, but we're going to steer you towards Drive, you can make that available through Moodle, so they won't know that it isn't in Moodle. But you can also make that available to them forever, shared with me, right? And so they can access that resource if you choose to let them, if you store it outside of the Moodle environment. If you store your content inside the Moodle environment, they can't ever get at it once they're no longer a Moodle student. Now, there are some things you definitely want stored in the Moodle, kind of behind the firewall. So if there was stuff, for instance, that was curriculum that was not for public use or that sort of thing, or the quizzes are a good example, or maybe there's some proprietary or some stuff that stale dates. You don't want them using. So if there was code or something like that, then you may decide, yeah, no, we're going to store it in Moodle. But if you have 500 PowerPoints, I would strongly recommend that you store that outside of Moodle in Drive. I'm going to recommend you because that's what we're using here. Because that gives you the option then to share and link. And the other beautiful thing is this. Now this is where you can correct me if I'm wrong. Let us assume that you're going to use a PowerPoint in 3 different courses. So if you store that PowerPoint, if you put that PowerPoint in 3 courses in Moodle, and then you change a slide, you have to change that in every course in Moodle. If you put a link to that PowerPoint to 3 courses in Moodle, when you change that slide in Drive, you don't have to, the content is there. Automatically, all 3 courses are updated for you. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at, for instance, the classic example is shop safety. We go through shop safety for any shop course, and I don't care what you're doing, and it's basically the same stuff, right? Well, you're going to do that in every course. You don't need 6 copies of that for the 6 courses. You can have 1 presentation on shop safety linked into 6 courses in your Moodle. And if something changes, this kind of solvent that we're going to use in the wash tanks, you change it once here where you've stored it in the cloud, and you don't have to worry about it.
So where did they originally find that information? I know it's linked to Moodle, but where would you direct them originally to find that? Like you said, you use Drive.
Olds College has become a Google for educational institution, so everybody here has a Google Drive account. And so from the student's perspective, they don't know. They're in their Moodle course.
They don't know that it's in Drive.
They don't know it's in Drive. Mm-hmm. They hit the link and it opens up a presentation, and I encourage you to convert to slides instead of PowerPoint.
There's another session on that one.
And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it really sucks. So they aren't going to know that they're in Drive. But the beautiful thing is when you have that document that you want them to have access to, then you say to them, hey, now in our case, everybody has a Google Drive account. But in your case, if they don't, I'll bet you 60% of your students, well, actually, no, you guys are Gmail.
We're moving on. Yep,
yeah. So you say, hey guys, if you're interested in this, make a copy to your account. Or I'm going to share that with you, and it'll show up and you're shared with me. And when I update it, you'll always have the current version. So that's just an example of some things.
But it's stored in a Drive or whatever.
Yeah. It's stored in the Olds College Drive. It's linked from Moodle. And it isn't going to be stored in their Drive. It's going to be stored here and linked to our Drive. So tap and die table. Quick and easy, right? Everybody needs one. What a great resource that is to have. Well, you don't have to build a tap and die table into the 4 courses that's included to you at once. And link into the 4 courses. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, that's quite all right. Yeah, so and everything in Google is really a web page. It's all web-based. So when you go to share it, you just take that URL, and then in Moodle, you just add a URL, paste that in, and it puts the link in.
So for me, it's no different than what I have right here. It's just linked into Moodle right now.
Yes, probably, yeah. And actually, up to until this year, 98% of the instructors here put everything in Moodle. There was a few that were using their own personal Gmail accounts and were linking it out to those. But then it was hard to share with students because it was all personal, like no one had, like we're all now in the same domain, and it's much easier to share documents to other students and other instructors that we're all in the same institution.
How much space do you give a drive?
30 gigs, but here's the cool thing that they don't tell you off the front. If you have photographs below, I believe it's 2,000 by 2,000 pixels, it doesn't count. If you take your PowerPoints, which are huge, and convert them to slide presentations, the size doesn't count. It doesn't count against you. If it's a Google Doc instead of a Word doc, they don't count the size. So the 30 gigs is only non-Google product, basically, or high-resolution photos. So, and the same with YouTube, which is Google still, again. You can put as many YouTube videos as you want, and
It's just a link.
it's just a link, and you never run out of drive space. And they back it up for you, and all kinds of.
So I'd find that under Google and Gmail, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So size-wise, we have 30 gigs, and I don't think anybody's even remotely close. And you're going to get close if you bring in massive PowerPoints and don't convert them, or if you bring in video files and store them there. Don't store video files in Google Drive. Store them on YouTube or Vimeo, or I don't care where. But yeah. So again, it's really convenient.
Yeah, and all of those, like getting more into the specifics of like Drive and Docs and slides and converting all that, we will be having, there will be lots of sessions on those too. But again, if you do need some help, really, and we're like Google, just try Googling it. Like really everything that we know about Google, we've kind of just Googled ourselves. So try that first. But if you're having trouble, you're just not sure what to search for, or you're kind of stuck, you're not finding the results you need, just contact us and we can always help with some of that searching too.
I
So.
just found Drive.
There you
There
go.
you go.
I didn't even know I had stuff in it
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
from 2010.
And if there's one thing that I can tell you about finding answers, when you go to Google, don't say drive size limit. Say, so how much space do I have on my Google Drive account, question mark.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. If you say the whole sentence, just like you'd ask Andrea, it's amazing how much better a search result you get.
Yeah, Google Works, you can just type in a question. You don't have to just focus on keywords. Type it in how you would say it. And
All my documents here,
There you go.
Yeah.
and I can put them all there. in
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can
And-
share whole folders, you can share specific documents, you can share forms, all sorts of
You
stuff.
can give them view access, you can give them edit access, you can give them only access to comment. Yeah.
So lots to think about, and that was kind of the idea of today, was really just to kind of give you an idea of all the things that you can do in Moodle, but at the same time, try to spend some time, don't even get into Moodle, don't even log in, maybe even just in a Google Doc or on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, whatever. Just try to kind of sketch it out, figure out how am I doing this by weeks, am I doing it by topic, am I doing it by kinds of activities? What would be the most logical way for the way I teach and the content that I have that I want to present to my students? Because like Bruce said, if you try moving stuff around partway through, Moodle doesn't like it when you start moving things. It likes it when you just put it in and leave it in one
Pretty well
place.
gonna delete it. Or make a
Yeah,
copy and delete
like to move things from one block to another, we've had some frustrating days.
So I have mine set up here.
Sure, yeah, I'll have a look at it here in a second. Yeah, so that's the end of what I wanted to show you guys today. I will share the PowerPoint with you that had some of those points and some of those steps and things to focus on. Yeah, just feel free, play around in your account, and if you do, so Mitch, maybe once you kind of have an idea, if you want specific courses, or if you want one big one and you'll just kind of break it out within, just let us know and we can get that set up for you. So, or if, and if you have other instructors that have courses that you like, ask them to enroll you as an instructor, and you can have a look around and poke around and see how their course is. Just, but please don't click on red X's. That's all I ask too. All right. Well, thanks for coming. I think the next one will be. I think they'll be every Thursday for the next about 5 weeks. And I think the next one is the grade book. We tried to do really kind of the big important ones right off the top. So we have grade book and quizzes are probably some of the important ones that I would ask that you, if you're planning to use those, we have some really good tips and things to kind of give you some direction with that. So good. Thanks for coming. Hopefully we'll see you next week.